Set.
We're getting there.
Get in there.
Process.
Watch out, lasers.
Is Jessica, she's still with the same guy?
I don't know. We got the.
She might have to push the.
Okay. We did meet before.
Yeah.
I just didn't recognize.
It's okay. I don't normally look like this.
I think we didn't have a suit on.
I rarely do.
Good to see you.
So I left it here.
So, of the 7
Are we live now?
siblings, how many are left? Just 3?
Sorry, I need to be next to the camera. Sorry. Thank you.
Waving at anybody. How you doing? Go ahead and start. I'll see if anybody can hear. Yeah, you might. We're gonna get started. Just kind of make your way over this way. You might be able to hear it.
That's Brian.
Let's go to the other side.
All right, welcome family and friends.
Yeah, okay.
We're happy to have you attend this service for Dad, or Ken Lytle, a great man who will be remembered. I would also like to thank Capriva for all their help putting this together today. They made this difficult process for the family much more comfortable. Dad had 2 special loves in life. Lynn, his loving wife of 72 years, and his collective family. That means all of us. Kenneth Lytle, the man who had many names. He was Ken to Mom, Dad to his children, Uncle Ken to his nephews and nieces, and Kenny to his siblings. Then there were the special names. Grandpa Ken, Great-Grandpa Ken, where his eyes would just light up whenever there was any grandchildren or great-grandchildren at the house. That perfect team of Mom and Dad were magnificent coaches and teachers, which aligned well with raising a family of 5, 4 boys and a girl. It couldn't have been easy for Lynanne, but she managed to make it through a house almost full of testosterone. Mom and Dad made a beautiful team raising this brood, which included transporting us across the Golden Horseshoe for many years to play sports, and Dad would be on double duty as one of the team coaches. Mom and Dad were excellent examples for our athletic-minded family, as the 2 of them were constantly involved in organized sports themselves. Dad made the perfect family coach for all of us because he was an expert at all sports. At least that's how it seemed at the time.
That's right, Andy.
Lacrosse, baseball, curling, tennis, golf, and the list goes on. We all remember the days where he taught us how to ice skate, catch a ball, use a hockey stick, and of course, catching that lacrosse ball behind your back. He also passed on a love of a leisurely sport of fishing, where he could spend endless hours with us on the water at Lake Eugenia or any other body of water. And his true love was really watching his kids catch the fish. We, as kids, spent many evenings with flashlights or turning over the garden out back, picking worms for that May 2-4 weekend, opening of trout season. Dad's love for family was very obvious, whether it was at a family dinner where he sat at the head of the table and made his toasts of appreciation, or if one of his children were bringing home a significant other, possibly a future family member, or there was another grandchild on the way. His chest got bigger every time the family increased in size. Later in life, when Dad started slowing down, us kids would plan a visit, help doing things around the house. Dad would find a perch and watch the work being done by his family. In the earlier days, we thought this was just the supervisor coming out in him, making sure that we did the job right. As time went on, you could see he wasn't checking on the quality of work as much as he was proudly watching his kids execute the teachings that he had passed on to them. He took great pride in seeing how we had grown and become capable. He also loved the fact that we would try to fix something with our own hands before calling the so-called professionals. During Dad's last chapter, while in the hospital, this was a time I will cherish bittersweet. Mom and I spotted each other out at the hospital on a daily basis, conducting shift changes on his various conditions, some highs, some lows. Even in the hospital, he demonstrated how proud he was of his family by introducing us to all the nurses and doctors, sometimes more than once. I was introduced as Dave Gary Trav, but never Lenan. But that would have been fine too. This had nothing to do with his condition. He had been calling us Gary, Trav, Dave, Andy as long as I can remember. During our time alone in the hospital, we developed a different relationship. It was closer to a friendship between two guys. We would talk about things friends would normally talk about rather than father and son. Not saying it was better, just closer. Love you, Mom. Ken, Kenny, Dad, Uncle Ken, Grandpa Ken, and Great-Grandpa Ken. A great man who will be remembered. Love you, Dad. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy.
There are several people that wanted to say a few things, so we'll just start doing that. Obviously, everyone feels the same way, so Mary Jane, if you want to come on up and say a few things. That'd be great.
Hi everyone, my name is Mary Jane Carroll, and I am the daughter of longtime neighbors of the Lytles. Good afternoon. It's an honor to speak today about someone who meant so much to my family and to me over so many years. Mr. Lytle was more than just a neighbor, and I have to tell you, my whole life, Mr. and Mrs. Lytle were always Mr. and Mrs. Lytle, never Ken and me, so just bear with me. He and the Lytle family have always been the heart and soul of the Devon-Darramore neighborhood. I know this because my parents lived just a few doors apart from the Lytles for nearly 70 years. Both couples were first-time homeowners of homes in the township of Trafalgar, now southeast Oakville, and I know that the Martins are here today, and the Kleins, and so all of us were. These are all original families in a neighborhood. It's that kind of lifelong connection is something truly rare and doesn't happen very often anymore, I don't think. From the time I was young, the Lytles were always a constant, people you could depend upon. I have so many warm memories, and what stands out most is the fun we all had in the Lytle's backyard. For instance, in the winter, Mr. Lytle would build a skating rink, and I think he did that with the help of some of the kids. I'm not sure he did that entirely on his own. He turned the space that is now their pool into a community center that was open to everyone. Of course, that was when our winters were colder and longer, and we could skate from December to the end of March most years. At that time, the yards were not separated by hedges or fences as they are now. Our neighborhood was really one big playing field that everyone could enjoy. Cost us nothing, but it was an endless source of fun winter, spring, summer, any season. Mr. Lytle was a man of boundless energy, always doing something, whether it was working in the garden, fixing something around the house, or lending a hand wherever it was needed. As my dad would say, you can always count on Ken. More recently, in the past few years, the Lytles would come up to our cottage, a visit that meant a lot to my parents. Mom and Dad always made sure there was a special project ready for Mr. Lytle because they knew he didn't like sitting around. He helped us to put up shelves, to put together a fair-sized utility box on the deck, and so much more. And of course, there was the requisite puzzle. To this day, he's the only person to have successfully completed the polar bears on an ice cap puzzle that we had up north. It's just crazy. It's just all white with a couple of black noses, but he was a puzzle wizard, as all of you know. The Lytles at the cottage was a tradition, and it brought joy to my parents every year. But what I think I'll remember most is the friendship he shared with my dad through curling, golfing, and especially those treasured Friday afternoons of euchre and homemade wine. They found humor and connection in each other's company. In my father's later years, when his health began to fail and he couldn't leave the house anymore, that friendship wasn't just comforting, it was essential. Mr. Lytle's presence made those difficult years bearable, and for that, our family will always be grateful. He was a kind, generous, and constant presence, a true friend, not just to my parents, but to all of us lucky enough to know him. His legacy isn't just in the memories, it's in the way he made people feel welcome, cared for, and a part of something bigger. To the Lytle family, thank you for sharing him with us for so many years. We carry his memory with deep affection, and he will be missed more than words can say. May he rest in peace.
Thanks, Mary Jane. There are, as I said, there are a lot of notes that have been passed along, so I'm gonna try and read through some of them. You know, without bawling my eyes out. We're gonna make this work, I promise. Andrew, Ken's grandson, thank you. Thankfully, Lynn's here to sort of correct me when I'm doing this. So, in fact, if you could come up here, that would be really helpful. Travis's son has written a little note. My favorites were when he created puzzle and scavenger hunt games for us, cooked lunch from his garden, and when I used to spend the time in the summer with him at the Oakville Executive Golf Course, golfing and running the pro shop. I'm not really sure who was running the pro shop.
I don't think
Andrew?
it's Andrew.
That might have been Andrew. When it was a trailer at the time. Sometimes, or he'd do the note games when Jeff and Carrie came down. Jeff and Carrie are his cousins, Dave and Debbie's kids. So, Jeff, who is a grandson as well, Dave and Debbie's son, has written a note. He said, to be your mid-40s and still have grandparents in your life is something rare and so special. I recognize how fortunate I have been to have had the love and support of so many incredible role models. Grandpa Ken will be remembered for his dedication to his family, for summer evenings listening to ball games in the screen room, and for refreshing dips in the backyard pool. A special memory that stands out when I think of my grandfather is the year I received a brand new set of golf clubs for Christmas. It happened to be unseasonably warm that day. Since Grandpa Ken was working at the Oakville Executive Golf Club at the time, we were able to play a round of golf on Christmas Day. How cool is that? Carrie and I always look forward to time spent with our grandparents in Oakville when we were never allowed to leave the table until Grandpa Ken had offered us at least 3 helpings of dinner. We never went hungry, that's for sure. Grandpa Ken will surely be missed. I love you, Grandma Lynn. Big hugs for me and your family out east. Jeff and I'm sure Becky as well. Their kids, Owen and Parker, have written a little note. Let me just find it here.
These are great-grandsons.
These are great-grandsons. Owen and Parker write, we are very lucky. In our family, not only did we get to have awesome grandparents, but we also got to grow up with great-grandparents. Spending summers in Ottawa usually meant we would also get to visit with Grandma Lynn and Grandpa Ken, which is cool. It was always so fun when everyone was hanging out together. Grandpa Ken never went very far without his fly swatter. I think we all know that. It's almost like the horseflies knew he was armed because they never seemed to bother him, just the rest of us. We remember fishing on the dock, campfires, and Grandpa Ken snoozing in the hammock while wearing his spiky fake hair ball cap. We loved Grandpa Ken very much. We love you, Grandma Lynn. Sending love and hugs from the East Coast, Owen and Parker. Wow. Dave and Debbie were not able to make it here today. And these are Dave's memories with a bit of Debbie's embellishments, which as we know, kind of makes sense. Right? Sorry, Debbie. I know you're probably watching this. I have so many great memories of Dad, my father, my mentor, and for many years, my coach. There was nothing that Dad couldn't fix, repair, or attempt to, and if he couldn't fix it, only then would a new one come into the house. I watched and learned as he taught me many of those skills. We had so many great fishing trips together, up at the cottage, on Lake Eugenia, up north, out west. When I worked for the pool company, Mom and Dad decided to put a pool in the backyard. Dad wanted us to dig it by hand, probably just to save a little money and keep us busy at the task. After a day or two of digging and wheelbarrowing the sand from the backyard out to the garage, there was no place left to put it. Dad changed his mind. Or maybe he came to his senses and hired a backhoe to do the job. For many years, the pool became their backyard oasis. I remember being at the bottom of a 10-foot trench when Dad decided he could hook up new sewers to the road and dig it by hand. Another cost-saving and keep the kids busy activity. I think he had a bunch of those. He probably got really good at doing that stuff. There is a rumor about another digging project in the backyard, but that's a story for another day. That will cost everybody a whack of money to figure out that digging story. I'm not going to say it. Might have been a car involved. His love of digging continued in the veggie garden. His green thumb resulted in all of us enjoying the garden produce as well as apples, pears, raspberries, and strawberries. Dad was especially proud of his large squash. I'll let that sink in for a second. Oh, beautiful, oh yeah, it was a comma, and then beautiful peppers and tasty tomatoes. Of course, there was always chores to do around the house. Picking up the apples before we could cut the grass became a game. We used to use our lacrosse sticks to toss the fallen apples into the baskets. Dad was a good man, a great athlete, a caring dad, and he will be long remembered and sorely missed. That was from Dave and Deb. So the Martins, Ross Martin sent this the other day, and if it's, I'm going to read it unless you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
He was here, he could do it.
I know. So this is on behalf of the Martin family who were next door neighbors. Many families that lived and grew up east of the 9th line on Devon Road shared intertwined paths and a host of life experiences. Early reflections included living in new homes that were built on local orchard lands that had apple and pear trees on many of the lots. Climbing trees in our front and backyards became a rite of passage. Frozen ditches lining the fronts of homes allowed neighborhood children to skate to Joshua Creek and the hockey pond at the end of Devon Road. In the 60s, families could play sports on Devon Road. There was a lot of roads we could do that in the 60s. We can't do it now. Of course, I'm too young to remember any of that. During the summer and the fall, the roadway was shared between the kids and a host of neighborhood vehicles. Devon Road fathers would occasionally join into the local roadway sports activities. These times became etched within our life experiences that are often reflected on now and then. We remember meeting at our new neighbors as they moved into Devon Road. We have fond memories of the telephone party lines and the families we got to know through them. Family and friends have fond memories of times shared with Ken Lytle. Picture Ken and Ross Martin walking up Devon Road with different types of rooted trees, maple and birch. I think there was a picture up there while they were walking along with these birch trees. Carried on their shoulders from Joshua Creek. Can't do that anymore. These trees were planted in the front and backyards, but more importantly, these same trees thrived, brought shade and the beauty of color to our homes and neighborhood for over 40 years. Ken Lytle, as well as our other volunteer parents, set up and lit off the fireworks at Maple Grove Public School for hundreds to enjoy. Ken, who was also a volunteer fireman, assisted with what would be a family safe presentation of the May 24 fireworks. As children, we all learned to respect Ken's shift work by playing quietly outside and in the home. I kind of wondered if Lynn might laugh at that a little bit.
We had trouble remembering.
Yeah, that's one of those memories that are just so there. Tell Ross what happened with that one, will you, please?
We tried.
Sharing of household resources was very important within our neighborhood, whether it was committing time towards tasks that included heavy physical labor, carpentry and or cabinet making tools and experience, floral, vegetable gardening practices, etc. This was always a joint shared offer between the Lytles, the Martins, and many other neighbors as well. Ken was known for passing fresh vegetables from the garden to the Martins, even when as young kids we had already eaten most of the pea pods while playing around the Lytle sandbox. So we know, now you know, like in case you weren't sure, they were eating them all. Many of us were given sports tips by Ken Lytle, learning to throw the right arc on a football pass or how to properly hold a lacrosse stick to avoid possible wrist injury. The Lytle's backyard was a very early version of today's family sports complexes. Every winter, everyone helped stomping down the damp and snow to create a backyard hockey skating rink. There was a basketball hoop and a made-to-measure lacrosse net assembled from poles of an old swing set. If you listen very quietly, you can probably still hear lacrosse balls thumping off the back of the wall of the Lytle's house. Often tennis balls would come dangerously close to hitting Lynn Ann's bedroom window.
I think a lacrosse ball did.
Maybe, it might have been a lacrosse ball.
Carry yourself back. It took him a long time. though.
Wow, you're owning up to it now? That's great.
Well, I paid for it.
When the back garage wall was used as a rally backboard to improve beginner tennis skills. Every Christmas was special. This included Ross and Kay helping Ken and Lynn wrap a plethora of Christmas gifts after midnight. We were also very fortunate that Ken and Lynn were immediately available next door to keep an eye on Mom for years after Ross passed away. Lifelong neighbors like the Lytles are hard to find, difficult to part with, and impossible to forget. Thank you for being such wonderful neighbors from the Martin family.
Can I say a couple of things?
You are, if Pat says you're allowed to say a couple of things, you can say a couple of things.
I'm Ken's brother.
This is Brian. I'm introducing you. There you go.
Okay, thank you.
There you go.
I have long memories.
Dear God.
Growing up with 7 kids was pretty interesting. And then baby Sharon came along, she was the mistake. But when I remember Ken, he used to take me out to the lacrosse box. And he would take, and you know, I all forgot about this, because he would throw me the ball and say, come down to the floor and score the net. But he never reversed that. So what would happen, you know what happened to me when I went down against the 6'2" guy that was running around the box? And he would make sure that I wasn't going to get by him. So I learned how to throw the ball way down the other end into the net from that end. But he was a great brother. You couldn't ask for a better guy. And I more grew up with him than most of them. And I just thought the world of him. And boy, I just enjoyed going to that mimical lacrosse box to watch him play, because he was pretty good. And but I didn't care for the checking that I used to get for him. It was a little bit rough. Anyway, I thought I'd just leave you with a little reminder.
Jess, if you'd like to come up and say a few things, that'd be great. Okay.
America. And, Ken was my grandfather. As you all know, my grandfather was a very special person. He was someone who worked very hard, but always took his time to spend time with his grandkids. Some of my favorite memories of him came from my childhood. I think I was probably about 10 years old, and I remember that the both of us were driving around in his big blue truck. It had a manual transmission, and I don't think I had really ever seen that before. He tried explaining, being technically minded, how it worked, but I was way too busy asking him questions about what would happen if I moved this shifter here, or what about this gear, what if I did this, and it quickly devolved into a big giggle fest between both of us. Grandpa was so active in both body and mind. As kids, we always loved going swimming in Grandma and Grandpa's pool, cheering him on at the diving board, always excited to see his impressive diving skills, and asking for bigger and bigger splashes. We spent so much time in that backyard, lying in the sun, games of Old Maid, or picking fruits and veggies. He inspired me to grow my own vegetables, and as an adult, I was always interested in hearing what he was planning to grow that year. If it was too chilly to swim, Grandpa would take us kids down to Joshua Creek to hike around the trails and play in the park. He always loved to have fun. One of my favorite memories is watching him tear up that dance floor at Trav and Nancy's wedding. That guy had moves. He'll always be in my heart, whether I'm in the garden, or doing a puzzle, or hiking through the wilderness. I know he'll be there with me. Thank you for all the good times, Grandpa. I'll be raising a glass of red to you tonight.
Taylor, you want to say a few things? That'd be great.
Hi everyone, I'm Taylor, David and Lynann's son, Ken's grandson. Just a few memories of Grandpa Ken that I wanted to talk about were he was incredibly passionate about all of his grandkids' interests, and especially when it came to sports. I know he was ecstatic when Matt and I started playing lacrosse, and was always willing to teach us, play catch with us. I even had friends that would say, he's how old and he's still playing lacrosse? Or tennis, or, but beyond sports, he was always passionate about any interest that we had. He was always willing to help us out, whether it came to gardening, or cooking, or woodworking, especially. And basically, the truest thing you can say about him is he loved his family very, very much. Thank you.
Matt, our other son, oldest son in Vancouver, has sent a note. He says, I have so many great memories of Grandpa Ken. As a child, climbing the trees in the yard with Jess and Chris. Running around the garden, eating the strawberries and rhubarb and currants. Spending summers in the backyard swimming and watching baseball in the basement. If I close my eyes, I can still smell the wine fermenting in the basement. What were they doing near the wine in the basement? Where were we? We were drinking the wine. Or the smell of grease in the garage, or the excitement of an old school popcorn machine being brought out the little storage room down there. I remember having Easter egg hunts with Taylor and our cousins at Grandma and Grandpa's house. I haven't spent a lot of time in Ontario over the last 20 years, but one of the first times I came back to visit was for Uncle Trav's wedding. This is a great memory for so many reasons. I remember sitting with Jess and Carrie, having a drink at the bar, looking over at the dance floor and realizing that Grandpa Ken had been there all night long. He was drenched in sweat and having the time of his life. This might be the happiest I ever saw him, and I'll remember him that way forever. And that was from Matt. Is there anybody? Anybody else who would like to say a few things? Okay. I have a few memories, just a couple. It won't take too long now. Ken was born on April 14th, 1933. He was the first child of Ivory and Florence Lytle. It became obvious that Ken couldn't sit still, so he got his job a couple of weeks later. It might have been a little longer than a couple of weeks. But as a young man, he did have many jobs, delivering ice, then bread, possibly both at the same time. There was a little confusion on the timeline there. He then tried his hand at working on the trains with his dad. That didn't last very long, I think about a year, I think is what you had said, about a year and a half. And as he said to me, not long ago, he said, I walked across the street and got a job at Continental Can. So 35 years later, he was able to retire at 55. In fact, I think we talked about it, he was retired longer than he worked there.
Yeah.
So how cool is that? Well, he liked working, he loved sports, all sports, and he played them all. There's a trophy back there with all of the different things that he did that his work gave to him when he retired. Because I think he played all of them with work or with people from.
Yeah, I don't think he ever played squash, and I think there's a squash racket there, but other than that,
I think they probably put it there because if they'd have played him, they'd have lost anyway. He loved sports, all sports, played them all, and fishing, and then fishing. He liked to fish. I think he was a big fisherman. He liked fishing. At a young age, he started playing lacrosse, and it became a passion. He was very, very good at it. So good that he played with boys several years older than him, and he was one of the best players on the team. He was good at all sports he played, and as he got older, curling, golf, tennis became his passion. He played tennis into his 80s. Ken and Lynn curled together for years and won the mixed championship in Oakville, and separately won the men's and ladies championships there. One of my first, that's all right. One of my first memories of Ken was the day we went over to Ken and Lynn's house, and Ken and I think Gary and Andy were putting the soffits on the roof, like just under the roof, wherever those things go, I'm not totally sure. They were up on ladders replacing soffit. I only know the soffit because he told me that's what it was at the time. I'm not very handy. I kind of wanted to help, and I'm pretty sure that at one point Ken said, hey Dave, why don't you come down from the ladder and maybe go get us a beer or something. Clearly not very good at doing any of that stuff. But he stuck with me. Over 40 years, he was the teacher and a mentor to us, to me. There's no way I could have done the things around our house if it hadn't been for Ken and his help. And of course, Lynn. Kind of the glue that held everything together. I think we all agree with that. So, thank you very much for coming. Lynn? Okay.
I just want to say that he was truly a wonderful man. I fell in love with him 73 years ago, and I never fell in love again. And he was a good father, and he was a wonderful husband. And I'm going to miss him. I'll always remember him. Thanks.
Thank you very much for coming, everybody. We really appreciate it. I know the family appreciates it. There is some food back there, and there's beer and wine. Don't drink all the wine. No, have whatever you like. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Let's hope that works.
Oh, Lynette.